Hi, and welcome to the Poultry Nerds podcast. I'm Carey Blackmon, and I'm here with my co-host for the show, Jennifer Bryant, and we're here to help you figure out how to raise the healthiest, happiest, and highest quality birds possible. So today we're going to talk about why would you want to keep quail? Why would you want to keep quail?
Why do I want to keep quail?
Yeah. Why would somebody want to keep quail? Why would our listener want to do that?
So many reasons. First of all, you would never have an egg shortage. That would be a good one. You'd always have eggs. You could have meat if you wanted to do that. You'd be just a tad bit more self-sufficient. They have a quick turnaround. They take up a small footprint. Anybody can have them, no excuses, and they're pretty easy to take care of. Does that sound like a dream farm animal?
It does. I have a lady that my wife works with. Her husband live in an apartment. And she found out that I kept quail. And she was like, I like that little noise that they make. And I just started laughing. And I said, are you talking about the ones that the roosters make? And she said, yes, I love that sound. I can remember when I was a kid, I used to sit and listen to them. And it was just so relaxing. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, I wish I could have those. And I said, why don't you get them? She said, they don't allow animals in our apartment complex. And I said, you could probably get you a rabbit hutch or something like that. You got a back deck? She said, yeah, we have a deck. We got a grill back there, table, all that kind of stuff. I sit out there and read all the time. I said, read. Do you have enough room for a bookshelf? And she said, yeah. Now she has quail on that bookshelf.
That's right.
And she was amazed to find out that most quail lay over 300 eggs a year.
Yep.
Pretty long.
3 quail eggs to make 1 chicken egg if you need to do a recipe, give or take. But if you can put a Coturnix quail in an apartment, that would be awesome. But if you have a super strict apartment complex, you could get away with button quail. Right. Okay, so if you live in a super strict apartment complex, you could probably get away with button quail. Now, they're more like a parakeet or maybe like songbirds. They're very small, 3 ounces or so, maybe 4 ounces. And they lay little tiny eggs, but they're edible and they lay every day. You might have to crack 25 of them to make an omelet, but that's still a step at self-sufficiency.
Now, with the button quail, if I remember right, didn't I see one time you posted some pictures of yours in an aquarium?
I do. I had them in an aquarium. I still have some in an aquarium. We've upgraded since then because we have so many. But guinea pig cages, hamster cages, they don't have to be tall. They don't fly like a parakeet. They're ground birds. They don't perch. They want to be down in the shavings or whatnot. They need hide. You can turn over a basket. We use coffee cans. We cut out a hole and they jump in there. They're super easy to keep.
That would be neat. So if somebody was wanting to dip their toes into homesteading, they could essentially get an aquarium inside their house or their apartment like other people have. Fish. Put them a couple button quail in there.
And nobody would really ever know. The girls don't make any noise. And the boys, they coo like a dove. It's a very soothing sound. It's not shrill. Nobody would ever associate that with any kind of animal in your apartment.
They're tiny. It couldn't be too loud.
No, but now if they got loose or something, they do fly like a parakeet. You might have to pull the blinds down or something to try to catch them. We go to the dollar store and get the hummingbird nets out of the kids section, and that's how we catch them when they get loose.
That's awesome.
This morning, Kevin called me and the entire juvenile cage got loose last night. And I've been chasing them for 30 minutes out here. So those are not fun to catch. And the cats were trying to help. So he was fighting with the cats trying to catch the birds.
So, note to self, button quail are a lot more active than Coturnix.
They are. You definitely would want to have a lid on said aquarium or guinea pig cage. But as long as you were aware that they can do that, it's fine.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So they're just fun to watch. And if the kids were growing up in an apartment, it would be neat to be able to show them, hey, we can feed these and they'll lay an egg and we can have this egg for breakfast. We can save eggs all week long and have breakfast on Saturday mornings. Because their
Well, it
eggs are
would be a way to
beside
do
the
it
house.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be cool for the kids if they were living in an apartment.
Okay, so if we're trying to figure out what would be right for us, button quail would definitely be a good option if you're in an apartment. Possibly, maybe a small, like regular Coturnix, not jumbos. Maybe.
I think that there is an odor factor difference there. For some reason, the button quail don't have the amount of ammonia smell. But if you stayed on top of it, sure. Yeah, you could do it.
Okay. What about, let's say I live in a neighborhood and I can walk out of my back porch and see 3 different neighbors, but I still want to have some quail. Which ones would be right for that?
And a really strict HOA on top of it. Yeah.
Bump a HOA. We don't like HOAs.
Let's just go down the list of the most strict to the least strict. So if you have 3 nosy neighbors and a strict HOA, you know what I have always visioned like drawing up and maybe trying to sell or at least promote would be a park bench. So you put a park bench out in your back porch or in your little flower garden or whatnot. And the bottom of the park bench, like the 4 legs, you would screen those in and the seat would lift up and there would be your quail hens. How cool would that be to like be sitting on your quail hutch?
That would be cool. Hey, they do it with dog cages. I've seen dog kennels that were like end tables and coffee tables and things like that. So why not have a quail aviary? It would be outdoors. They could fly in it a little bit. I think that would be a
But if you really wanted to hide them from your neighbors, you could literally be sitting on them and wave at your nosy neighbor and go, I don't know what you're talking about. Seriously. And if you only had hens, honestly, they don't really make a whole lot of noise. They kind of chatter sometimes. The roosters will crow. But if you put a nice water feature beside your park bench, nobody's ever going to know that from an obnoxious crow up in the tree.
I would be the one that would be like, oh my God, do you hear that? And I would know it was one of my roosters, but I hear it too. What is that? And the whole time the rooster would just be going crazy. So that's one thing that I understand some chickens. I have some that are large and they got some base behind their crow. So I could understand why an HOA wouldn't want those in the neighborhood, but quail, to me, that should be a different ball game because you have bobwhites that could very well fly in a tree and not belong to anybody.
Oh, yeah. Mockingbirds are some of the loudest ones around here. They harass my cats sometimes. So, but if you just wanted eggs, you could just keep hens and don't tell your neighbors. They would never honestly know.
And what you just said is something that I have found that blows a lot of people's mind. Everybody thinks you got to have a rooster to have eggs.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, no, because these commercial houses where they have all the eggs to go to the grocery store, they don't have a bunch of roosters there too. Most of them just have hens doing their job, popping out the eggs.
And the Coturnix, as a general rule, they won't fly. like a bird. Like they may flutter out, but then they'll just land and you can very easily catch them with the butterfly net from Dollar Tree or just walk over there and pick them up. Most of mine, they just get down and they'll look up at me like, now what do I do? Pick me back up and put me back in my house. They're pretty mild tempered.
I had some get out the other day and they were in my barn and I was like, I'm going to find them sooner or later. And then they got out and got in the grass and it just looked at me. It was like, what are you doing? And I was like, what are you doing? And I reached in, picked it up, and that was that. It
And so
didn't try to fly away.
And that's the other thing is, you need to make sure you're getting these from breeders who breed for temperaments because you do not want one in an apartment setting or an HOA setting that is just obnoxious and wants to fight with you all the time. You want to get temperament-bred quail.
Yeah, because I imagine if you had some crazies, your HOA Karen would definitely be beating on your door at 2:00 in the morning.
And that wouldn't be a good first experience for somebody like dipping their toes at self-sufficiency. And unlike me and you who just cannonball into the whole process. Some people want to dip their toes gently. And so button quail or Coturnix bred for temperament, that would be just a gentle ripple in that pool of farm life.
And it could either be one of those, hey, I like it, we're going to start looking for land. Or it could be, this is really annoying. And you just post them up. Hey, these things are looking for a new home up for discussion. And they'll find a new home pretty quick.
Yeah, they will. So could you imagine if you live in your HOA or on your apartment balcony and you had some pots of some fresh lettuce and a little tomato plant in a bucket growing and you had your fresh eggs for your boiled eggs on your salad? How cool would that be to say, hey, you know what? I do live in an apartment, but I grew this stuff for my lunch all by myself.
That would be pretty neat. Guarantee you there's a sourdough starter kit on the counter, maybe sitting on the bar or something along those lines.
Yeah. All right. So let's say you move out of the HOA into just a general purpose subdivision. You have your nice half-acre lot. You have some trees. You have a privacy fence. Now you can really get into some quail. Now you can have an 8x10 shed. You can put rabbit hutch style cages out. You could build an aviary that you can walk in and sit down with your birds and they can have, I don't know, rocks to play on. And you can really get elaborate with some setups if you have a little bit of space.
I have seen some pretty elaborate setups. And some of them I'm like, where do the people have this much time to put all this together? It's like a little quail haven.
I know,
right
right?
here.
So first of all, they can live outside year round. You do not have to bring them in the wintertime. I don't even care if you live in Idaho. You can still leave them outside. You're just going to want to give them a little bit of shelter to get out of the muck or the wind if they want to. So they may be standing outside going, well, yeah, look at that snowflake. But you can put them in stack cages out on the backside of the barn. You can get old rabbit hutches and repurpose them and keep them. I've seen this before on the raised beds. You could build a cage that sits on the rails of your raised beds and just move them along and it self composts basically onto the beds themselves. And you don't even have to clean up after them.
Okay, so that brings me to one that I've been working. So I've seen in a lot of groups, people talking about putting quail in aviaries outside. And more specifically, putting them in tractors. Okay. So I have an Alumicoop dealer and they have a small one that's a 5x6, 5 feet wide, 6. So I'm going to build, my wife has always said she wanted some flower beds in front of the house just to give it a little extra, some street appeal or curb appeal or whatever you call it, even though we're on a dead end road. So I'm going to build some of those that are just a little over 5 feet wide. and I'm going to throw some quail in there and let them do their thing for a few weeks. And then I'm going to move it forward a little bit. And then I'm going to move it forward a little bit. And then I'm going to go get them all out of there. And then I'm going to take the tractor out of the flower bed. And then I'm going to have this little tiny quail aviary that just goes back and forth across my front yard. Because I'm doing research for the people here. So many people say, can you tractor quail? And on the 5x6, they have the wheels that come down in the back when you lift the handle up in the front. And I looked, and if a quail is right there, they could slip up underneath it. But if I have somebody behind it to where they'll want to come forward, I don't think they'll come out. I think you could tractor quail. I mean,
I don't think that a quail tractor is probably what Tamara had in mind when she asked for some flower boxes and curb appeal. But you need to ask her tonight.
I feel overly confident that when she comes home and sees that she has flower beds and she knows that she's not going to have to maintain them, that she'll be happy.
Okay. You're the one that has to live with her, so let me know how that works out for you.
Now, I understand the tractor inside the flower bed may be a bit much. I don't know if I'm going to get away with that, but it's really good fertilizer, right?
I grow
do
straight
know
carrots in it.
there is a lady that I follow that coincidentally, she was a teacher too. I follow her blog. She quit teaching and now she does homesteading at her house. And she built some tractors. And what she'll do is in the off months, she puts hens, some of her hens in the tractors in her flower beds or in her garden beds. And then when she'll move them from one to the next throughout the cooler months, and she'll till it in and raise all kinds of vegetables and stuff like that when it comes back. So I just have to answer the question, can you tractor quail? That's something that's been asked. So I'm going to do the research.
Yeah, you come back and let us know how that works. As far as the manure from the quail, we do need to tell our listeners that is a hot manure and technically should be composted for 6, 9, 12 months, depending on what all you got in there. So if you have lots of it, then definitely pile it up. But if you're just talking about little bits of it, by all means, just mix it into your soil.
You need to till it in and call it a day.
That's right. All right. So now you've got your half an acre, you've got your rabbit hutch style, and now you've got to pack them in there. So you have a storage barn. How big is your barn for your quail? Like 12
The barn the area that I use for quail is roughly 12 by 20.
Yeah. So you could put a storage barn in your backyard, in your subdivision, and put an exhaust fan on it in the summer and put your quail in it, and nobody would still know.
No, because I want to say it's a 36 foot, maybe a 34. And the last bit of it is my incubator room. And in the other 20 feet, I have 5 stacks just in there. And I have plenty of room for feed storage and all that other stuff too. And yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's in it because like what you said, I've got an exhaust fan, the 20 inch exhaust fan in the top at the back. Strategically put a window in one of the sides up towards the front, crack that thing open, turn the fan on. You can go in there and it'll pull any smells out in a matter of minutes.
That's right. That's right. And so at that point, you're going to be even more self-sufficient because not only do you have the eggs and you don't have to wait for Saturday morning to have enough, but you can have eggs every day. You can pickle eggs and sell them. You can harvest the meat for yourself, for your friends, for your family, for your dogs, for your cats. What else can you do with them? You can make arts and crafts with wings and feet and skulls. People do that. You
And I gotta
could,
say, I gotta interrupt for just a second because when you say that, there's got to be a lot of our listeners that are like, "What in the world?"
yes.
And I fully get it because that was my exact same expression. We have a mutual friend that when I first heard her say that, I was like, "Where's my car keys? I need to make sure I have a way out." But then I started seeing pictures and like earrings, charms for necklaces, things that you would never imagine what they really were, but they were beautiful.
Yeah, just go on Etsy and look for quail jewelry or quail decor. You
Hmm.
can take the feathers and make wreaths. You can make cat toys. You can make, I don't know, I'm not a crafty person. I don't care. But there's a lot of things you could do to them. But I do dehydrate wings and sell to bird dog people. I had dehydrated the feet and tried to feed them to my barn cats because that's all I have is barn cats. And they just looked at me like, whatever, I'm just going to go out in the field and get me some fresh ones. But I think an apartment cat person might like that. They can't go out in the fields. Let's see, what else can you do with the quail? You can eat them. You can put them on the barbecue. You can bake them, chop them up. Right now, I have two little dogs in the house. I have a Chihuahua and a Shih Tzu. And right now, they're eating quail, pumpkin, and carrot for breakfast in the morning, and they love it.
So I was I was talking to somebody last Tuesday and they asked me what my favorite type of quail was. And I had to say barbecue.
Mhm. Yeah.
The meat is very lean. I won't say it tastes like chicken, but I will say it is a bird. But I enjoy it. It's lean, it's healthy, and it's one of those things where, okay, you live in a neighborhood, so you're not really a farmer, but that's something you can say, I know what that animal ate because I fed it and now it fed me.
Mhm.
Um, that's to me, that's empowering to be able to control what you eat, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Way to make sure you have healthy stuff.
yeah. And if your favorite is barbecue, my favorite actually is I like to eat wings dipped in blue cheese. So my son actually smokes the legs and we toss them in hot sauce and we eat them in lieu of hot wings. I see it. See, y'all can't see the look on his face. He's like, so the dogs can have the breast meat and I'll just eat the wing part.
That's definitely a mini wing.
It is, but I know where it came from. It's not some gigantic thing run through a commercial processing house.
It's
But you
true.
know what we didn't talk about though for people who are in a subdivision is they wouldn't know about harvesting the meat. I'm sure because I can think back before I was aware of it. We did it as a kid. But a chicken, you have to grow it out. You have to dispatch it, then you would have to pluck it and part it out and all of those kinds of things. And that's a process. And if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a time consuming process. And you have to have space to do it and water. You have to have a hose and all those kinds of things. A
Can be a little
quail.
messy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a big, it's a big messy. And we do a lot of birds at the same time. So we actually run the mower over all the feathers and try to chop them up. But the quail, you just need a pair of scissors. You can do it in your lawn chair.
Yeah. I saw a video that Terry had done and he, the shears that he uses, those things, I'll just say they have a lifetime warranty and they're really sharp. And if
I
one of
have a
your
pair.
kids had something they shouldn't, you
Mhm.
can actually send it back and they'll sharpen them for you.
Yeah, I have a
They're
pair.
really nice. But you can take those things and pop the dispatch. wait about a minute. You should get your legs and whatever else you want off, and use your thumbs and separate the feathers off the breast at the same time. Pull it out and you're done.
Yeah. I can do one in under a minute. So
It is a lot quicker. And like you said, if you're thinking about chickens and all the stuff you have to have, I mean, for this, really, you just need kitchen scissors.
yeah. Kitchen scissors and a bucket. Yeah. Now, when I first started, I wore the gloves and I was like, I don't know what I would even want to say. Like I had a plan. Now I'm just like, give me a bucket, back of the gator, scissors, done. Yeah.
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 I can remember when I was a kid going dove hunting and quail hunting. You have this thought and the way that you see it done inside the kitchen, and then you see the way it's done in the field, and it's a little different.
Yeah, I've had people ask me to make videos, and we've actually done it a couple times, and we sat down and we watched them afterwards, and we both said, yeah. Oh. We just delete them.
No, somebody's going to have something to say about that, and it's not going to work out to your favor.
Yeah, it's definitely not OSHA rated.
No.
Okay, so now let's say you outgrow your little half-acre lot and you really want to get into this big time. You have outgrown this show at that point, and now you are one of us, and we welcome you to the club.
Yeah. The thing that I tend to caution people when they talk to me about quail and they ask me about it, I say, listen, have you heard of chicken math? Everybody's heard of chicken math. They all know what that is. And I say, quail math is worse. It's a multiple. It's worse.
Yep.
So be careful.
So for people who don't know, I have a 30 by 50 barn at this point, and the quail have actually taken over, and I would have to estimate how many birds are in the barn, but it would be at least 2,000 birds in the barn at this point, at any given point. So just absorb that for a minute.
And how long ago did you start with quail?
It's been a few years. But I have 4 right now it's February. I have 4 cabinet incubators. They're all full. So that just means what? 2,800 eggs in the incubator at any given time. Some of them are double stacked, so it could actually be closer to 3,000.
I realized that the blue trays that have become popular, you can put, I want to say it's 96 quail eggs in those, the decent sized jumbo ones. And you can stack those on the top and middle row of some incubators. And you're like 800. Wow. I have too many. What am I going to do with those when they all hatch?
So I can't double stack the ones you're talking about. Now, the original GQF style ones for the GQF, I have 2 1502s, and I have the original trays that go with those. I can double stack those if I put in my smaller eggs. But once those bigger eggs go into the dark blue trays that you're talking about, those eggs are so big that I actually can't double stack them. It will crack the eggs.
I do have to be very selective with mine because if I don't put ones that are all the same size, give or take a gram, I can't stack them.
So what I have found is, like I put the buttons will actually fit on those GQF trays. They won't fall through. And so those are fantastic for the bottom tray. And then I can put the larger eggs on top. Or the Celadon eggs are a more consistent 12 to 14 gram size. And I can use that as a bottom tray. Or if I'm doing like small balutes, small pet balutes, then those fit in those are smaller eggs. So you just have to be careful where you put stuff in there. It would not shock me if you went out there right now In my hatching time, I had removed the black water tray out of the bottom, and there was a hatching basket in the bottom because I have been known to double stack and shove stuff everywhere in there.
Look, I will say this. I don't know where my black water tray is that goes in the bottom, because you can take those baskets and sit two in the very bottom and then stack some on top to where you can get 3 levels high in the amount of space that is only 2 of the racks that they have in there.
We sound
I
like
mean,
lunatics.
it's being used for a hatcher.
Look,
So
we have to stop
they don't have to
enabling each
rotate
other.
them. It's all in research for our listeners.
Okay, so
We
just
want them to know.
forego the rails then in the hatching time incubators and just stack those hatching trays in there.
I will say, past 3 levels, it's hard to get stuff in and out. So I just stack 3 on the bottom, and then I go back to using the basket sideways because that is for convenience. And a lot of painter's tape. I like white painter's tape because you can write on it and it's the same color as the incubator. Blue painter's tape works really well too when you're trying to keep things separate.
I use lavender painter's tape.
Whoa. Lavender painter's tape.
I do. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Now I can't think of a reason not to keep quail. Would there be any cons to keeping quail? Oh, wait, I do have a con. You must
Hey,
have a
Bill.
plan for the manure.
Oh, then there's 2.
Oh, what's the other one?
Your feed bill.
No. Yeah, we don't talk about that though. But you have to have a plan for the poop.
You do have to have a plan for the poop because it stacks up quick.
It does. We have 2
Figuratively,
poop mores.
literally, you have 2 what?
Mount poop mores.
Okay. So at the edge of my property, I pushed over some land, some stuff to level out my backyard. And so there's a ravine. And luckily that and the occasional 50-pound bag of lime keeps that at bay. But yeah, I'm almost to a point to where I'm looking at building some type of raised beds and putting catawba worms in it.
So actually the manure is extremely beneficial. Now I pile mine up. So we use shavings in the summertime in the poop trays because it absorbs moisture, dries it out, which means the flies don't like it as much. But now we have more land than you do. And I have a chip drop. I have a tree service that drops me tree trimmings. And so we just mix that in with the manure and it composts nicely. And I have raised beds, several. I have 8 at this point. So.
That sounds good. I have seen in my area, they do offer the chip drop service from tree companies. I'm not really sure what 20 yards would look like dumped over on the edge of my yard.
I would say it's a small dump truck load. So I would say maybe 2 or 3 pickup truck loads was what it would look like.
For me, I'm more thinking along the terms of how much trouble am I going to get into? Would it be more than the chicken quail tractor in the flower bed or less? Because
you convinced her that the compost would then grow her better flowers in her flower bed.
I built a house 6 years ago and we still don't have flower beds. I don't know that she cares a whole lot about it.
Mine's 4 years and we have no landscaping either.
Okay, cool.
Because I'm in the barn all the time.
I'm in the boundary then, so I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. Guess you have to ask her, not me.
What if I wanted bobwhites? What would that need to look like?
So I don't want to say too much about bobwhite, so I can just tell you what I do know. It takes them 6 months to lay, where it takes Coturnix 6 weeks to lay. And If you want them to know how to fly, you have to keep them in flight pens. Otherwise, they just act like a regular Coturnix in the wire cages and they don't fly.
So the lady that I got my 1502 from, she originally wanted to start raising bobwhites. And what she had outside for hers reminds me of when my son was a kid playing baseball. It's a batting cage. One of the ones that's a net, like it was that big, it was really long, the whole deal. And she's like, oh yeah, they'll get in there. They can't get through the net. So it works perfect. And that's exactly what that is. That's a batting cage. But she said, I've had almost 1,000 of them in there at one time. And I'm like, okay.
So a bobwhite's more like the kind of bird that you're going to hunt for. So hunting clubs will buy them. When I was a kid, they were wild, but we really don't hear them too much anymore. So you have to keep them in flight cages, is my understanding anyway, that so they know how to fly. And then when you release them in the wild, they know how to do that. But I don't really want to say too much more about them because I really don't know too much about them.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about them other than you pretty much have to have an aviary if you're going to have bobwhites, because the whole purpose is because they will fly.
And there are some other ones.
Thank you for joining us this week. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they are released. And they're released every week. Feel free to email us at poultrynerds@gmail.com to share your thoughts about the show. Until next time, poultry pals, keep clucking, keep learning, and keep it exciting. This is Carey signing off from Poultry Nerds. Feathers up, everyone.